Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Merril here. Merril, you were able to achieve a lot on the field as a great football player, and you've also done, equally as much off the field as somebody who's spoken in a lot of places, provided interesting analysis through your previous job over there, and just also been able to channel the journey that you've had, and which is you've encountered some difficult situations and take that the ability to overcome it and the positivity there and project it onto others, which is what I think I really like about what you've done with your platform. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate it, brother.
So early on, how did your passion for football and wanting to be a football player begin?
Well, you were not born. This happened in around 1973. I got asked one day, somebody asked me, hey, Merrill, what do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? I didn't have any idea. It was the first time actually the scope of my little mind had been widened, though, to something I would not have thought of at that age. And I wasn't frustrated by the question. I was actually intrigued by it because I started thinking, wow, I never thought of that. I'm like, that's actually an interesting question. And so I started to look around. Now, to paint a picture of 1973, my dad was a milkman. He got up at 4:30 in the morning. He delivered milk. People left empty bottles of milk in their container, and he replaced that with full bottles of milk. You didn't even go to the grocery store and buy milk. So that tells you the environment that existed. And actually, not everybody had a television at that time. If you did, it was a box about yay big, an antenna, two knobs, only three channels back in the day, and even not even a remote. I tell people all the time, I go, but if your parents watch TV with you, you end up becoming the remote. And that's how I know people that were around in 1973 because they remember that. They're like, hey, change the channel. So you had ABC, CBS, and NBC, and that was it. So, and we had a rule in our home that you couldn't watch television on Sunday. So even though I was playing football in the backyard and I just signed up for it, I'd never seen football on television. And my grandparents used to always have their television. Well, they had their television on all the time. That's why I used to love to go to their home on Sunday because we would see television that we never saw on Sunday. And it was shortly after being asked that I walked into their kitchen. And I looked to my left, and there it is, man. It was the Green Bay Packers were playing. I don't know who they were playing, but the big deal was I'd never seen football on television. And this is shortly after being asked, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? And I've been doing it in the backyard. And I loved it. I got to play it every day. I played in the snow, the rain. It didn't matter. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what I want to do. I know what I want to be. I'm going to play in the National Football League. And that's actually where it all began. Once I saw that, I was like, that's what I want to do. And that's what I want to be.
So you had this, passion that started to develop. How did you start to train and prepare yourself to actually get the opportunity later on to be in the NFL?
Well, I did something far. It's all important. The journey's all important. The thing that happened to me next that was probably most critical and is still instrumental in my life, in all aspects of my life, not just playing in the National Football League, but my personal life, other careers. My career abruptly ended and had to rebuild a life. I was in school. So I was 10 years old. I was in school one day, and this teacher comes in, and she goes, "Hey, you know what? Everybody needs to have goals, and you need to write them down and put them up in your room. It's where you start and end your day." And Ben, I was like, I love that idea. I'm like, holy cow! Like, I never even thought of that. I was like, that's a great idea. And I tell you, my mind starts working, and I had a problem though. I shared a bedroom with a little brother, and we had a bunk bed, and so I couldn't put anything up on my wall. And I didn't have. If I pinned anything up on my wall, my dad probably would have killed me because if we punctured a hole in the wall for words, he was just not going to be happy. He was not going to be happy about that. In fact, I used to pray for my little brother to disappear every night diligently because I wanted my own bedroom. That's how bad I wanted it. How much I love that goal. It doesn't mean I don't love my little brother. I loved him, but I wanted my own bedroom. And in fact, then it got me thinking about another level of that. I was like, so I would go to bed at night almost every night and daydream about the one thing that I would have in a bedroom if I had my own bedroom I had never seen in a bedroom, and that's a wall of cork. Because what that teacher had said really sparked me. I was like, that would be so powerful. I have a lot of goals too, not just one. I have a bunch I'd write down. Well, it was actually shortly after that, my dad announced that our concrete basement that we used to play in the wintertime, he was going to convert it to 2 bedrooms, a family room, and an office space. And the good news was one of those bedrooms was going to be mine. So as soon as he said that, I was like, well, can you make me a wall of cork? So he asked why. I explained. He said, I can't promise anything, but we'll see what we can do. Long story short, he makes me a wall of cork. It ends up being a half a wall of cork. And I had written all my goals down. I was in preparation for this wall to be built. So when I walked into my room, the wall that I envisioned was going to be a wall of cork. Was nothing but white painted sheetrock. So I was disappointed for a second. Until I looked to my right, and there's my bed. It's bumped up against a wood chair rail, and then above it's 3 panels of cork. And I'm like, it's not an entire wall, but it's big enough. So on that day, what happened? There's a lot of things that happened to me that were instrumental on that day that are still impactful to this day. I had my first moment of truth in life, and my first moment of real self-reflection. So when I pinned that goal up, I'll play in the National Football League, I started to revisit all the things people had said to me. Like when people would ask me later, I was like, I'll play in the NFL. I'm like, oh, you know how hard that is? You know what the odds you playing in the NFL are? Oh, don't put all your eggs in one basket, son. I wouldn't want you to be disappointed. Or it's impossible. And so I started thinking, I was like, geez, the more I thought about those things, I would play in the NFL. Nothing more than words on a wall. And that's where my first moment of truth in life happened, my moment of self-reflection. In that process of lack of energy and letting those things absorb my thought process, I thought to myself, I'm like, I didn't write that goal down to be words on a wall. I wrote it down because I want to do it. And on that day, I committed to that goal. I'm like, nah, I'm going to achieve that. I didn't write that to be words on a wall. And I committed to it on that day. I made a commitment and a promise to myself that whatever work was required, I was going to do it. Whatever odds I was got up against, I was going to beat them. And I was putting all my eggs in that basket. And I knew it wasn't impossible. People were doing it, so it's not impossible. And on that day, what I did, I didn't realize, but words and visuals are powerful to control your mind. At the end of the day, every human being that will watch this, will listen to this, will see this, the challenge everybody has, I have, it doesn't matter who you are, you have this challenge. Do you control your mind, or does your mind control you? And that is exactly how we will operate. There was a quote I came across in my journey by Aristotle. I don't know what Aristotle was at the time. I was about reading stuff. I don't know why I wrote it. But the more I read it, the more interested I became. And I've come across a quote that ends up being the foundation of my journey. I still use it today. It's powerful and it's so true. We are what we repeatedly do. Then excellence is not an act, but a habit. The truth in that. Everybody, I mean, and that's powerful. Like, so you have choices every day. You get to choose what you want to do, what you want to be. You get to create the plan and the action that is going to require to get you to where you want to go. And then you have to make that ultimate commitment and you have to be relentless at it every day. Because those are all about choices. Okay, that's not a gift. That's not some special thing that people have that other people don't have. That is the power of the mind. It is you controlling your mind. And one of the best things for any person to do is take their thoughts and turn them into words and goals. And then those visuals, those words and goals will inspire action. Okay. And those actions will lead to your patterns and habits. And it's your patterns and habits that build your character. And it's your character that leads you to finding your way in life and your destiny. And that is so true. At the end of that statement is, you don't stumble out of bed and become excellent. But there's not a soul sitting in this room or any room that you will be a part of or that will watch this that can't be excellent. That is the true power of a human being, to take all of those things and apply the mindset to that and be relentlessly committed to it and choose to commit to the person in the mirror, to take ownership of your journey, of your life. You're responsible for that. Nobody else is. You can point fingers, cast blame, and make excuses, and you make your day easy and your tomorrow harder. I know of nobody that has ever pointed fingers, cast blame, and made excuses that has ever garnered any success ever. But people who take ownership of stuff, people who control their mind, people that use the things in a relentless fashion, incredible things happen to people. Amazing things can happen. You can stop things that you want to stop in your life. You can start things you want to start in your life. You can change things. You can become whatever is humanly possible when you do those type of things. What ultimately is the test for everybody is that not wanting it. It is that relentless commitment of every single day. Be committed to getting there. And when you learn to develop those habits, which I learned as a kid, and I'm so grateful for them, from Aristotle to Walter Payton, Chuck Noll, and they've been instrumental tools in in my tool belt of life that I can apply when needed. And when you initially start that process, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it becomes easier the more you do it. And the more you do it, the more powerful you become, and the more you are in charge of where you want to go and what you want to do and what you want to be.
A lot of important things there. I mean, I think that you've definitely learned that over your journey, and you've tried to embody it for sure. So you were able, Merril, to be a great player in the NFL. You were able to achieve well when you were there. What do you think enabled that type of success in you? Was it your work ethic? Was it how you thought, the way you prepared? Like what? How did that happen?
It was everything, everything that you just mentioned, and it was things that I learned along the journey. Okay, I mentioned the Aristotle quote. Okay, I found that I discovered that on accident when I went to the library to learn more about Walter Payton, because Walter Payton was my favorite player, and I was a running back, and I'm like, well, man, I watch Walter Payton all the time, and I've heard about all these ways he trains, all the things he does. And I used to hear this all the time because this is always said about Walter Payton, which was odd as a kid to hear because you're like, what? They'd always say he's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, he's not the fastest, he's just the best. Now that's confusing as a kid. I'm like, well, what? I'm like, everybody who's bigger, stronger, faster than me is better than me. So how's he best? He's better than anybody in the world. I mean, that's the best in the world, and he's better than them. I'm like, that's fascinating to me. And I heard about these dirt hills he ran, and so I wanted to go search about him. So that's why I went to the library. That's how I stumbled across Aristotle. But for years, I followed him, and this is back in, the late '80s. I mean, listen, I actually heard about a tape he put together called "Winning in Life." You will not know what this is. A lot of the audience will not know what this is. But I got it. I got the tape, and it was a VHS tape. Okay, VHS tape. If people don't know what VHS tape, it's a big tape like this. You plugged it in. I mean, that was like modern technology. Okay, so I got this tape and I plugged it in, and it was an interview process I saw him give that would be an a critical component of my overall mental approach to football at the time, but ends up being life. He was asked, he goes, what makes you better than everybody else? And he paused for a second and he said, I want it more than they do. Every single day of the week. He said, you see, in the off season, when I go run a dirt hill at 7:00 in the morning, I want it more than they do. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. There's not 65,000 fans in the stands and cameras are not rolling everywhere. I want it more than they do. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then Sunday at 1:00 when you get to see me, man, you better believe I want it more than they do. And it hit me. I was a kid when I read that. I was like, I can do that. Now think about this. You can do that. And that is about a choice. And that's not just towards football. It's about whatever you want in your life, whatever you're trying to start in your life, whatever you might want to try to stop in your life. It's ultimately a choice. Okay. And then it's about habits and being committed to them and be relentless at them every single day. It's not wanting it. I mean, everyone can do it. Everyone wants something. Can you commit to it? Can you do the work required? And are you going to do it when it's hard? Not when it's easy for you. Not when it's convenient for you. When it's difficult. Will you still do it? And when you learn to do that and you develop that mindset, I'm telling you this, you can do powerful things in your life. As a kid, I was like, man, I can do that. I remember hit the pause button. I'm like, I'm going to do that. And I remember Friday nights in high school. Everybody was going to meet, go to a place. And I'm like, I committed to being better as a football player. I have to do certain things on a Friday, so I'm gonna have to choose one or the other, and I chose that. So I mean, it's just one example, but we all have to make choices of where we're going to go on our journey, what we want to do in our journey. And I found this out, Ben. People who really want things will find a way to get them. People who don't will find an excuse,
Yeah.
and that's where it's on you. Your journey is on you. That's why I think it's so important that people understand. If you really want to change your life, you take ownership. Take ownership of your journey. Okay, and that means that you break chains and you end cycles. I mean, and the things that may have happened to you may be from some other people that you did not have any control over. They did things to you bad. Most time it's things that happen to us bad that affect us, and we harbor ill will, and we let those haunt us. Okay, And it might be things that you have done. Okay, it's that moment where you break those chains and end those cycles. Go, I'm done. I'm done with that hindering my life's journey. I am now going to do A, B, and C going forward. You do that, and everybody can do that. It's about doing it, though. Once you make that decision, once you make that commitment, that's why self-reflection is so important. That's why committing to the person in the mirror is so important. I tell people when I speak all the time, I go, live by what you trust, not by what you fear. And most people, I see people, their face, they're like, trust, what do I trust? I'm like, okay, wait, think about it. I'll help you. The goal that you have right now, Ben, if you have a goal, okay, or somebody has a goal, think about it. Who wants that goal more than you? No one. Whatever challenge, goal, or dream you have, who's going to do the work for it? You are. Like, trust you. Trust you. I mean, fear is temporary. Regret, that's forever. So go after what you're trying to go after. Change what you want to try to change. Take that ownership, create that mindset, and do it every day. When you start learning how to do that, I am telling you, things in life are different. Then you get things like this. You don't get nobody hands you an award for it. Where you put it on the mantle and you look at it every day. But you can be rewarded with things that matter far better than a trophy that sits on a mantle, with like things like peace, joy, happiness, and personal success. I would think the greatest thing a person can give themselves, personal gift they can give themselves, is at the end of a dream, a goal, a journey, a challenge, a start, or a stop. You look in the mirror and you go, you know what? Did you do your part? And you say yes to that. Yeah, I got to get everything out of my God-given ability. I did my very best. I'm at peace with that. There's nothing more that you can ask of yourself in that. There's great peace in that when you know you did your part. You did everything you could. Does that mean you accomplished it? Doesn't always mean that. But it means I did everything possible. I got no regrets. Man, I have peace with that. That is one of the greatest things a person can give themselves, is it being able to, at the end of a journey or a certain point in your life, you're like, or you don't have time, or you can't go back, you can't do things over again. You don't have any regrets for that. And one thing, because I struggled with that. I remember when my career ended prematurely. A lot of people know this, some people don't. I mean, I was laid on the couch. I was in depression. I had to learn how to read again. I was an utter mess. I laid on the couch every day for months. I was getting fatter and uglier and more depressed. And every day I was mad at the doctors. I was mad at the Bears. I was mad at how it happened. Every single day. So when I say point fingers, cast blame, and make excuses, that is not garnered success by anybody ever, because I was in that blender. I was in that toxic blender of disaster. So I know it garnered nothing. It wasn't until I took ownership. One day I was like, okay, I'm done with that. I am done. In fact, the word's right here. I mean, Find a Way have been instrumental in my life in so many instances, but that one might have been the most critical because it challenged me to get off the couch and do something about my circumstances and start to do something I didn't want to do at the time because my career in the NFL was over, and it happened in the middle of the season there. I was in my prime too. I mean, I could give you a litany of excuses of why I laid on that couch and was where I was, and it got me nowhere. The day I got off the couch is the day things changed. And I want to be careful with that, because that doesn't mean it just was over. I mean, it took me 5 years to really dig out to have peace. But when I came to peace, I was working at ESPN at the time. Every time I go to the Super Bowl, I couldn't have been more depressed. It was the most miserable 2 weeks I ever had when I had to go to the Super Bowl and cover it. And I was getting ready to go to the Super Bowl, and I was going over, I jumped back in the blender. I was angry. I was upset, and I started, comparing my career to Walter Payton's career, and then I started being upset. The one thing I wanted to do, gosh dang it, that I got close but never did. I never won a Super Bowl. Then I started angry at that, and I'm actually standing literally in my bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, and I said, I just looked in my mirror. I'm like, all right, listen, what more could you have done? What were you in charge of that you failed, or you cheated, or you didn't do that you should have done that harbors all of this? I got everything out of my God-given ability. I got every ounce of it out of me. I'm like, I had peace. I finally had peace. I was like, oh my gosh, stop it. You did your very best. There are circumstances you don't control. Shut them out. It's over. You did your very best. Man, when I went down, I think it was Atlanta, had the Super Bowl, and it was the next like 17 years at ESPN was the happiest 17 years I had because I finally had peace. I had let myself, I had done my part. So I freed myself of that harp. I got out of that blender. I quit doing that. I kept repeating stuff that you can't change, you can't fix. And I had the ultimate piece is that I've done my very best. I've gotten everything on my God given ability. And I'm like, I finally had peace.
And where are you kind of at now? Like, what do you aspire to accomplish at this point in your life?
Well, my ultimate goal, I stumbled across this, I didn't see this coming in life. I do speaking across the country. I do inspirational speaking. I almost consider myself a messenger, not a speaker,
Mhm.
because I try to share a message that I have lived. Somebody didn't tell me about it. I don't share it because I heard it, saw it, or somebody or read it, or somebody told me about it. I share it because I have lived it. I share it because I have been impacted by so many people. People have challenged me. People have inspired me. I find hope in people. And I'm hoping that the message can leave hope with those people. That there might be a nugget here or there that they're looking for or they're searching for or they might need. That when I get done speaking, they're like, that's the thing that helped me. Like the moment I read Aristotle, the moment I saw Walter Payton's tape, the moment I got challenged by Chuck Knowles. I mean, all these different things in life that had built me. I'm like, that's what I try to do. Doesn't mean everybody in the audience is going to feel that, by no stretch of the imagination. But there's somebody in need of something. And can you leave them something that will be transferable and applicable? And that's what I love doing now. And I love those opportunities. See, somebody asked me the other day, what's your goal when you speak? And I'm like, it's the client's goal. And I'm like, actually, hold on. I do. Actually, I have a goal. When I speak, if I get done speaking and they're talking about me, I did a bad job. But if they're thinking about themselves, then I did a good job. And that's what the message is about. It's about you. It's about, helping give you something, a little something that you might need in search of that you could apply to your life and give you a little more peace, happiness, and joy.
Yeah, I definitely love that, and that's your mission right now because you have an incredible journey that you've been able to to go through and overcome certain obstacles that some people haven't been able to overcome, and now you want to be able to bring that out in other people. It's fantastic. So, just the last question I have, Merril. If you mentioned goals were important to you earlier, what would you say are some of the goals now that you have in your life, like over the next 5 to 10 years? Like what's kind of maybe an overarching goal, and then some other goals that you have.
Well, actually, the number one goal that I have is I spoke, the most I've ever spoken a year is around 35 times. And my goal now is to do at least 50. That's ultimately where I want to be. Um, so that's really some of my personal goal. I always have, and I've always had. I started this. This is probably my number one passion in life. Actually, was my overall health. Like my overall health is always a priority. It's always a goal I put out every year on my wall of where I want to go and how I want to train and the commitment that I have to myself. And I think everybody needs to. That you are your most important person. That doesn't mean it's me. Don't get me wrong. I'm like, I get myself my commitment. I got a 2 hour commitment in the morning. That's why I get up early. I get myself taken care of. I get me buttoned up because that makes me better for everybody else. It makes me better for my family, my wife, my kids, and it helps me be a better person if I take care of myself. I do a leadership. I have a leadership message that I share, and some tools and some outbreaks stuff that we do as well with Find a Way, and leadership is a part of that. And the most important aspect that we start with is who is most important as a leader, who is the most important person? Like you are. Like if you are not at your best, if you don't take care of you, it is hard to service others. It's hard to lead others. And so taking care of yourself is a critical component um, to being a successful leader. And if you think about it, at the end of the day, like you're a leader. Everybody's a leader in some aspect. You're in charge of your life. You're in charge of your health. It's a personal responsibility to do our very best to take care of ourselves and to help us live the very best life we can live, the happiest life we can live, and then how we can benefit so many others on our journey.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Merril, and sharing your story, a bit of it. I think that there's a lot of people can learn from you. I've definitely been inspired by what you went through and how you overcame it. And now that you want to share that, I think is awesome. And people should definitely check out the speaking that you do, and hopefully you can get to that, that new goal of where you want to be at speaking currently. So thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure, Ben.